Hey there folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into an often overlooked chapter of American history. It's the Battle of Blair Mountain. It's a story of struggle, oppression, and the complexity of armed revolt. But before we jump into the heart of the battle, let's set the stage by exploring a question that has echoed throughout history. When is armed revolution justified? In the words of our nation's founders, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them, well, you know the rest. The Declaration of Independence reminds us that sometimes armed revolution is necessary to enact the sort of change that is needed. We've seen glimpses of this throughout American history, from the Bundy Ranch standoff, where individuals stood up against perceived government overreach, to the Civil Rights Movement, where groups like the Black Panthers resorted to armed rebellion when they felt oppressed and unheard. It's important to remember that our founding fathers drafted the Second Amendment for a reason. They understood that an armed citizenry would act as a safeguard against tyranny and serve as a last resort when people's voices are silenced. Now, let's zoom in on the early 20th century in the coalfields of West Virginia. Picture this: a booming industry, coal corporations growing in power, and hard-working miners enduring unbearable conditions. These miners toiled tirelessly underground, facing long hours, low pay, and a complete lack of workers' rights. Meanwhile, big coal corporations held sway, prioritizing profit over the well-being of their workers. In the face of such oppression, the United Mine Workers of America, or UMWA, emerged as a beacon of hope. They sought to unite the miners, to give them a voice, to fight for better conditions. But as the power of the Union grew, so did the resistance from the coal companies. They didn't take kindly to their authority being challenged. Violent clashes ensued, tensions escalated, and the battle lines were drawn. It's within this powder keg of discontent that the Battle of Blair Mountain would erupt, marking a pivotal moment in the struggle for workers' rights. So fasten your seatbelts, my friends, as we dive into the untold story of the Battle of Blair Mountain. A chapter that reminds us of the timeless question: when do we pick up arms to fight for what we believe in? Stay tuned. In our journey through the Battle of Blair Mountain, we find ourselves in the rugged coalfields of West Virginia, where a thriving industry and the struggle for workers' rights converged in the early 20th century. Picture this: men descending deep into the earth, their faces etched with weariness as they extract the black gold that fueled the nation. But behind the allure of the coal boom lay a harsh reality. The coal miners faced grueling workdays, enduring long hours in treacherous underground tunnels surrounded by constant danger. The mines were rife with hazards, from cave-ins to toxic gases, and their wages? Barely enough to scrape by. Faced with these oppressive conditions, the miners sought a way to change their fate, to band together for their common cause, and thus the United Mine Workers of America, the UMWA, emerged as a beacon of hope in the coalfields. Led by passionate activists, the UMWA aimed to address the injustices plaguing the mining communities. They sought to improve working conditions, secure fair wages, and put an end to the exploitation suffered at the hands of the big coal corporations. But the coal companies, driven by profit and wielding immense influence, weren't about to relinquish their control without a fight. They saw the growing power of the Union as a threat to their bottom line. Tensions between the miners and the coal companies simmered, escalating into clashes marked by violence and bloodshed. Coal company hired guards known as gun thugs were often deployed to suppress any attempt at unionization. In these coal mining towns, the line between corporate interests and local politics was kind of blurred. company-backed officials, corrupt in the pockets of the coal operators, worked against the miners' aspirations, silencing their votes. Strikes, demonstrations, and rallies became commonplace as the miners fought for their rights. They marched shoulder to shoulder, demanding fair treatment and an end to the oppressive reign of the coal companies. But the struggle for justice was far from over. As tensions reached a boiling point, the Battle of Blair Mountain loomed on the horizon, an event that would test the resolve of the miners and change the course of history. As we delve deeper into this turbulent time in West Virginia's history, we come face to face with the relentless struggle for unionization in the coalfields. The United Mine Workers of America, the UMWA, stood as a beacon of hope for the miners, offering a platform to voice their grievances and to fight their fights. With unwavering determination, the miners began to organize strikes, marching in solidarity, their picket signs held high, demanding fair treatment and an end to the oppressive conditions they endured. But the coal companies, threatened by the growing power of the Union, spared no effort to crush the workers' aspirations. They employed ruthless tactics to suppress the miners' fight for better working conditions. Company-backed guards, often armed and ready to defend the interests of big coal, clashed with the miners, turning peaceful protests into fierce battles. It was a struggle for control, a battle between labor and the forces of corporate power. Union organizers played a crucial role in rallying the miners, inspiring them to stand united against the injustices they faced. Their fiery speeches echoed through the mining communities, empowering the workers and giving them hope. But the struggle for unionization extended beyond the picket lines. The miners and their families faced economic hardships, evictions, and even violence as they stood up to the coal companies. Meanwhile, the coal companies, fueled by greed and driven by profit, used their influence to maintain control. They wielded political power, manipulating the system to protect their interests and suppress the voice of the workers. Corrupt officials, beholden to the coal operators, turned a blind eye to the miners' plight, perpetuating the cycle of oppression and leaving the workers feeling marginalized and voiceless. But the miners, united by a shared vision of justice, refused to be silenced. Their struggle for unionization set the stage for the pivotal events that would unfold in the Battle of Blair Mountain. Today, we step onto the battlefield of history, where the Battle of Blair Mountain unfolded, forever etching its mark on the struggle for workers' rights. Let's dive into the events that led to this monumental clash. The frustrations of the miners reached a boiling point as they felt oppressed, ignored by the legal system, and facing ruthless coal companies. They yearned for a way to fight back against the injustices they endured. Before the Battle of Blair Mountain, the stage was set by the Battle of Matewan, a precursor to the larger conflict. It was a spark that ignited a powder keg of discontent. So, in the summer of 1921, thousands of miners from various parts of West Virginia, armed and ready, marched toward Blair Mountain. Their goal? To demand justice and fight for the right to unionize. The miners advanced. They faced formidable opposition. Coal company forces, supported by the notorious Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, fiercely resisted their push for change. The battle that ensued was grueling and relentless, with both sides engaged in deadly struggle for control. The miners fought bravely, their determination fueled by a deep desire for a better life. Amidst the chaos, the U.S. Army was eventually called in to intervene. Their arrival signaled a turning point in the conflict as the balance of power shifted. After a week of fierce fighting, the miners found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. They were left with no choice but to surrender, their dreams of justice temporarily shattered. The Battle of Blair Mountain came to an end, leaving a scar on the landscape and the hearts of those who fought, but its impact reverberated far beyond the hills of West Virginia. The battle underscored the immense power held by big coal corporations and their relentless resistance to workers' rights. It shed light on the plight of the miners and the lengths they were willing to go to achieve justice. Though the immediate outcome was not what the miners had hoped for, Their struggle paved the way for future labor reforms and highlighted the ongoing fight for workers' rights. As we dig deeper into the Battle of Blair Mountain, it's crucial to examine perspectives of those involved. On one side, we have the miners determined to secure their rights and fight against oppression. And on the other, we find big coal corporations driven by profit and wielding immense power. Let's explore these contrasting viewpoints. Okay, so the miners, the backbone of the industry, toiled in perilous conditions day in and day out. They were trapped underground, surrounded by darkness and danger, facing the constant threat of injury or death.
We gave our blood and sweat to fuel the nation. We wanted fair wages, safer working conditions, and the right to organize. We were determined to stand united to fight against the tyranny of the coal companies.
On the other side of the divide, big coal corporations prioritized their bottom line above all else. Profits soared, while workers' rights were neglected, and their influence seeped into the corridors of power.
We built empires, harnessed the nation's resources, and brought prosperity. We faced challenges too, but the miners' demands threatened our economic interests. We had to protect our investments and maintain control.
The miners saw themselves as the heart and soul of the industry, fighting for fair treatment and the end to exploitation. Their strikes and demonstrations were an expression of their collective voice.
We stood shoulder to shoulder, demanding respect and justice. We faced violence, intimidation, and even death, but we were not afraid. We were willing to risk it all for a better future.
But to safeguard their interests, coal companies employed tactics to suppress the miners' efforts. Armed guards and strikebreakers were often used to quell dissent and maintain control.
We needed to protect our operations, our investments, and the jobs we provided. We couldn't allow the union to disrupt our business. We took necessary measures to ensure stability and growth.
The miners' struggle extended beyond the workplace. Families faced economic hardships, eviction, and even violence. Their fight for justice encompassed every aspect of their lives.
Our families suffered alongside us. We saw our children go hungry while the coal companies prospered. We couldn't stand by and let this injustice continue. We had to fight for a better future for our loved ones.
The Battle of Blair Mountain was a clash between these opposing perspectives, each fueled by their own motivations and belief. It was a clash between the miners' determination for a fair and just society and the coal companies' drive for profit and control.
We may not have achieved our immediate goals, but our fight was not in vain. We laid the groundwork for future generations, for labor reforms, and for the recognition of workers' rights.
And that, my friends, brings us to the conclusion of our journey through the Battle of Blair Mountain. It is a story of struggle, oppression, and the complexities of armed revolt. As we reflect on the events that unfolded, let's take a moment to consider the lessons learned and the enduring impact of this forgotten revolt. The Battle for Blair Mountain stands as a testament to the unwavering spirit of the miners. It reminds us of their determination to fight for justice, for fair treatment, and for their voices to be heard. The scars left by the battle serve as a solemn reminder of the lengths people will go in their quest for justice. It prompts us to reflect on the sacrifices made by those who came before us. The Battle of Blair Mountain forces us to confront the complexities of armed revolt. It reminds us of the fine line between fighting for change and the potential for violence, and how the struggle for justice can escalate into battle with profound consequences. The battle also highlights the clash between the miners and big coal corporations. It reveals the immense power wielded by corporate interests and the lengths they would go to maintain their control. It serves as a stark reminder that the fight for justice is not without opposition. It exposes the disparities of power and the challenges faced by those who dare to challenge the status quo. Ultimately, the Battle of Blair Mountain speaks to the resilience of communities affected by struggle. Families stood united, supporting one another in the face of adversity, fighting not just for themselves, but for future generations. Their courage and determination paved the way for progress, inspiring others to join the fight for workers' rights, for justice, and for a more equal society. As we conclude our exploration of the Battle of Blair Mountain, let us remember the lessons learned. Let us honor the miners who fought tirelessly for their rights, who dared to challenge the power of big coal, and who remind us that the struggle for justice is an ongoing journey. Thank you for joining us on this historical expedition. Remember, my friends, that the stories of the past shape our present and guide our future. Together, let us continue in the pursuit of a more just and equal society. And always remember that the Founding Fathers laid the groundwork for the fact that we are able and should be willing to pursue armed revolt if necessary.